Hey everybody, how you guys doing today? Welcome back to another episode of Halloween at the Manor. Well, in today's episode, we are going to be doing something fun. We're going to be making some tombstones. Now, I like to make my tombstones out of wood. People use other things like big sheets of insulation foam. I've actually seen some guys use FedEx boxes to make tombstones, but I like to use wood. I just think it's easier to work with, and I also think that if you want to attach anything to the tombstone, let's say a plastic skull or maybe like a small lantern or something, it's just easier to work with the wood. You just put a screw in and you're done. Now, I went over to Home Depot and I picked up a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of plywood, and it was a ½ inch thick, and it's what they call their sanded plywood. Now, that piece of plywood cost, I think it was around, I'm just gonna say $60. Now, what's cool about that is that you can actually get 12 tombstones out of that one sheet of plywood. If you make each tombstone 16 inches wide, 24 inches tall, you can get 12 out of that, which is really cool. Now, what I like to do is I actually like to double up my tombstones. So I'll actually take 2 of the ½ inch thick pieces and screw them together and make it 1 inch. It's just something I like to do. It's totally personal preference. You know, you can do whatever you want. Now, what's cool about this project is that you can make, like I said, 12 tombstones. Roughly comes out to about $5 a tombstone. Now, that's not including paint or other materials you might need. If you go to like a Spirit Halloween or some other Halloween store, you're gonna be paying way more than that for one tombstone. And usually those tombstones are made of styrofoam, so they're not gonna last as long as these we're gonna make today. These are actually wood. So why don't we go ahead, we'll get started here. I wanna get going, map some things out, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this one and make some tombstones yourself. So let's go. The first thing you want to do is come up with a design for your tombstone. The easiest thing to do is go on Google and search for tombstone designs. You can go as simple or as difficult as you want. I'm going to use these 3 designs here. Now, like I mentioned in the intro, I like to double up my tombstones and make them 1 inch thick. I traced the shapes of the first 3 designs I cut out onto another 2-foot by 4-foot section of the plywood. Then, using a jigsaw, I cut out the second set so I had 2 of each design. This will give me the ability to double them up. Now that I have 2 of each design, using 1 inch screws, I'm going to connect the 2 ½ inch thick tombstones together. I only had 1 inch screws available. If you do decide to use 1 inch screws, don't go the whole way through the wood or the tip of the screw will stick out on the front. It might be better to use 3/4 inch screws. I was just too lazy to go out and get some. Now we are going to add a name, birth, death date, epitaph, basically whatever you would like to put on the stone. For these tombstones, we are going to be honoring some legendary horror actors, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and Vincent Price. To put the names, dates, epitaph on the stone, I like to use a Dremel to do this. I go on my computer, use a Microsoft Word, I type out the name or dates using the Times New Roman font. After I get the sizing right, I'll print it out. You can then lay out the sheet of paper wherever you want to on the stone. Then, using a pen, I just trace the edges of the letters. This will indent the outline of the letters into the wood. You can go out and buy stencils if you want to, but I find this works equally as well, and it's probably cheaper. Now, you don't have to use a Dremel. You can do the exact same thing and just paint over the letters with a Sharpie or a paintbrush. So here's what the tombstones look like after the Dremeling is done. Now, I did not put the birth or the death date on the stones because my Dremel was starting to act up on me. For the Christopher Lee stone, since it looked kind of plain, I decided to add a piece of trim around the edge of the tombstone. It's just another piece of the ½ inch thick plywood I cut out and mapped around the edge. For Peter Cushing, I have Cushing spelled out, and I added a cross at the very top. In a lot of the Hammer horror movies, Peter Cushing plays Van Helsing, so I thought the cross was appropriate. For Vincent Price, I have Price spelled out, and I also added a few cracks to the stone just to give it a different look. Again, you can do anything you want to these stones. It's completely up to you. Now, the next thing I like to do is add a base to my stones. You do not have to do this. You could take these as they are, paint them, and stake them into the ground. Now, I'm going to use some 2x2 strips of wood around the bottom edges of the tombstone. Then on the very bottom, I'm going to attach a piece of 2x6 pressure treated wood. This will be the part of the tombstone that actually sits on the ground outside. Here's what the bases look like. The front and back pieces of the 2x2 inch wood are cut at 19 inches, and the two pieces on the side are cut at 4 inches. All of these were cut at a 45-degree angle to make them look cleaner when they were screwed together. The 2x6 piece of pressure-treated wood is cut at 20.5 inches. The gap around the 2x2 and the 2x6 is roughly 3/4 of an inch the whole way around. I'm trying something different this year. I covered all of the seams, screw holes, and edges of the tombstones with this all-purpose acrylic latex caulk I got at Home Depot. It costs $4 a tube. In the past, I used wood filler. However, I noticed it would start to crack due to temperature changes. I'm hoping this is going to work better. I'm going to wait for this to dry and then I will start painting the stones. Now, you do not need to do this step. This is just something I wanted to try to see if this works better than wood filler. So here are what the stones look like after painting. On all of the names, the cross, and the cracks, I started off spray painting those areas with a black spray paint. I wanted those areas to have a black base since I knew I was going to be painting all the stones with a gray paint and then dry brushing on white paint to make them look like actual stone. For the Vincent Price stone, I didn't do anything extra on this one. Vanessa saw this one and really liked the way it looked, so I kind of left it as is. For the Peter Cushing one, I added a mixture of green and brown paint to give the stone a moss effect. I then tried something I've been seeing others do. I added black paint and water to a spray bottle and gently sprayed the name and cross with that mixture to give it a dripping effect. It gives the stone a weathered look, like it hasn't been cleaned in some time. I really like the way this came out. Finally, on the Christopher Lee stone, since this one is kind of plain, I wanted to make the trim darker than the rest of the stone, so I used more black on that area. Then inside the stone, I used more white to give that area a lighter look. I also added some more of that green-brown mixture to give it that moss effect under the name and on some areas of the trim. So this is what I did with the stones. I like to try and make them look as real as possible. However, you do not have to go to the depth that I did. You don't need to paint these like this or use a Dremel to put the names in. You can keep this project very simple and still come away with some cool tombstones, especially if you add some creepy light on them once they're in your front yard. Well, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. I'd be happy to help. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day and take care. Bye.